Hey everybody, today is Monday, October 21st, 2024. Coming up on the show today, from Challengers, editor Marco Costa.
I spent 8 months on Suspiria as a second assistant editor, and then I quit because I found out that actually I wanted to be an editor. My concern when I read the script was about the tennis scene, because sometimes tennis can be boring. I'm a tennis player, I'm a tennis fan, but I have to say sometimes tennis can be boring. But Luca found a way to shoot in a really entertaining way and sophisticated way. I remember I said, Luca, you don't know anything about tennis. And he replied to me, my movie is not about tennis, it's about people.
Yes, all that and more on this edition of The Rough Cut. Well, hi there. Me again. Matt Fury, that is. Good to see you found your way to another episode of the show. It is most appreciated. As you heard in the intro, today we're talking to editor Marco Costa about director Luca Guadagnino's Challengers. Have you seen Challengers? That's a question a lot of people were asking earlier this year when the film came out. I admit, Challengers was not really on my radar at the time, although there was something familiar about it. Anyway, people were talking about it, and not just people, editors. When you hear editors talking about how great the editing is in a movie, you start to pay attention. And once I started paying attention, I realized why the film sounded familiar. They shot it here in the greater Boston area where I live and work, so I must have read about that at one point. Here's a fun fact. The main tennis court where a lot of the movie takes place, including the big showdown at the end, it's 2 minutes from here. How about that? When they were shooting that and Marco was working on location, he was just a couple minutes away. I could have driven over there on my lunch break and bugged him in person, instead of doing this interview remotely. I think Marco probably preferred the way it turned out. So let's bring this all back to Marco. What can I tell you about him? Well, Marco first joined the cinematic world of Luca Guadagnino as an assistant editor under editor Walter Fasano on Lucasfilm Suspiria. Marco would go on to be the lead editor on Lucasfilm Bones and All, as well as his TV series We Are Who We Are. And that all leads us to Challengers. Here's the important info on Challengers. Yes, I'm reading this. Challengers stars Zendaya as Tashi Duncan, a former tennis prodigy turned coach and a force of nature who makes no apologies for her game on and off the court. Tashi is married to Art, a champion on a losing streak. Tashi's strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against the washed-up Patrick, Art's former best friend and Tashi's former boyfriend. As their pasts and presents collide and tensions run high, Tashi must ask herself, what will it cost to win? Or what will it cost to win? See what I did there, Costa? Marco Costa? I can't help it. I get bored with myself. I'm sure you get bored with me too. So let's keep this moving. Marco and Luca did not exactly slow things down after they did Challengers. In fact, in just a few weeks, I think they have a new movie coming out called Queer. And possibly another one coming soon after that. Yeah, these are busy guys. Speaking of a couple of busy guys, before we talk to Marco, let me tell you a little something about the music in Challengers. It is highlighted by an intense techno track created by the dynamic composing duo of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It seems like those guys have their sonic fingerprints on every great movie or TV show. Wouldn't it be great if you could get them for yours? Well, you can, just by visiting our friends and sponsor Extreme Music. Their enormous catalog of easily searchable tracks has been lovingly handcrafted by the best and brightest in the world of music making. And you can find just what you need by dropping a few keywords into their search engine using metadata like tempo, genre, lyrics, and composer. You can type anything, actually. You don't even have to tell Extreme Music what you want. You can just show them by uploading a track to them, as in for reference, and they will find you ones like it. Whichever way you get those tracks, you can customize the stems by picking which instruments you want to keep. You can choose from different track lengths, and you can even do the licensing right there on their website. Or you can talk to one of their super friendly, super helpful representatives at an office near you. So the next time you have a story to tell it with great music from Extreme Music. Okay, time to take the court. Here to talk to us about Challengers, editor Marco Costa. Not that I've ever done that, don't
Yeah, it's good. And I'm Italian. How can I talk without moving hands, you know?
I guess it's why Italians make great editors. They do everything with their hands. Marco, we got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
The thing with Challengers is that's one of those movies where as soon as it came up, you started seeing on social media people saying, you got to see Challengers. And not just because they love the movie, but they specifically cited the editing in Challengers.
Oh.
But I wanted to start off talking about you. Specifically, what you were working on before you met Luca, because obviously Luca did Challengers and you've done other projects with him. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the beginning of what you were doing prior to that.
First of all, thanks for inviting me, and I really apologize for my strong Italian accent, because it's really strong, I know, and it's not easy to understand, but I try to make my best. Before starting my career in cinema, I got a degree in media languages in Milan, and then I moved to Rome and I studied film editing at the Centro Sperimentale di Cinematografia. It's the Film National School. And then I started to work as a second assistant editor on Suspiria. And I met Luca on that project because I was just an assistant editor of Walter Fasano, the editor of Suspiria, a great editor. And I remember I texted him because I was a great fan of his work, you know. So I spent 8 months on Suspiria as a second assistant editor, and then I quit because I found out that actually I wanted to be an editor. You know, it's another work, it's another job. I didn't want to be an assistant because, you know, you have to manage a lot of boring stuff and not creative. So I chose to work on a tiny and small project, but they gave me the chance to edit. Also, before moving to Rome, I worked 1 year in advertising, commercial video, but it's totally different and it wasn't the stuff I wanted to do, you know. I wanted to work on cinema.
Yeah. Okay, so you realize quickly, like, assistant editing is not for me. It's kind of boring. I want to tell stories as an editor. And so you start off doing a small project, an indie project, to sort of get your skills sharpened for editing, convincing Luca that you can be an editor for him. What was that process like?
Actually, I remember I was editing a small Italian movie, and it was almost done. And then I got a call from Luca, and he was preparing the new TV show We Are Who We Are, the HBO TV show, and his editor Fasano was busy because he was editing another movie produced by Luca. It's Beckett. So Luca called me back because he needs someone to work with him on an assembly. Luca is so caring. It's really a caring person, and he put me in a really good situation. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on me, but we watched the footage together. Then we started to work on the first sequences, and he really liked what we are doing together. So then, because Walter couldn't come on the project anymore because of Beckett, the other movie, so Luca decided to give me the TV show. And it was wow, because I was just 26. I was really young. And how can I manage an entire TV show by myself with an assistant? Okay, but Luca was really, really helpful. And it was a challenge for him, for sure, because he's really brave. How can you give your first TV show? How can you hire a really young guy for the editing of a TV show?
Obviously, as you said, he's a very caring person.
Yeah.
And clearly you passed the Luca editing test, because here we are. So once you've established yourself with him as an editor, when did he first talk to you about Challengers, and what did he say to you about it?
I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was 2022. I was in Rome. I remember, and he called me and he pitched me about Challenger, this new movie. I remember I said, Luca, you don't know anything about tennis. And he replied to me, my movie is not about tennis, it's about people. And that's right. That's correct. Then I read the script and then I completely understand what kind of movie Luca wanted to do.
So when you read that script, was there anything about it that stood out to you as, pun intended, a challenge? Because there's nonlinearity to the storytelling. There's also a lot of really kinetic, high-energy tennis sports editing that takes place. So looking at that script, was there anything you thought, this could be tough?
I was scared because I really didn't know the way Luca wanted to shoot the tennis sequence. But then when I received the footage, Luca shot that tennis sequence in a so specific way that everything was clear for me. And also he gave me the storyboard for the tennis sequence. Everything was perfect. And it was, wow, that's really nice.
Well, you said Luca knows nothing about tennis. What about you? Did you have any experience playing tennis or being a fan of tennis coming into this?
Yeah, I'm a fan of tennis because, I like to play tennis once a week if I can. I mean, it was helpful knowing the rules of tennis for me because I paid attention to the point, the service, and the way of the actors playing tennis, because we use some doubles for all the tennis scenes, but it was up to me and Luca decide where to use double or not using double. So, for example, Mike Fass is an incredible tennis player. It's really good. And I almost never use a double for him. And also for Zendaya. Zendaya, she's really good because they trained for like 3 months before starting shooting. So they were good.
Challengers is very unique for a few different reasons, starting with the fact that there aren't a lot of sports movies about tennis that aren't biopics. So you have things like King Richard or Battle of the Sexes. You could look at those films perhaps as inspiration, but did Luca have any stories or movies that he told you to use when you were working on Challengers?
We never talk about a sports movie because this is not a sportsful movie for us. It's something different, it's about people. And the movies he mentioned to me was Mike Nichols' movie, Carnal Knowledge. And also, the other reference he gave to me, it wasn't about movies. The first day of editing, he told me, okay, Marco, I want a super modernistic editing. And I said, okay, what does it mean? I want an editing like the modernistic art. What do you mean? And then he showed me a picture of the fantastic, incredible building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And when I saw this picture, everything was clear. I mean, okay, got it. If you have a chance to look at this picture, you can completely understand what I mean, because it's, okay, this is the editing of Challenger.
Well, Marco, I've interviewed about 250 editors for this podcast. This is the first time anyone has ever said a building was the reference that I was given to edit the movie.
Yeah, because Luca is an incredible interior designer, and he loves art.
That must put a little pressure on the production designer for this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
I admit I know the answer to this question already, but for the benefit of our audience, I will ask, where did you cut Challengers?
I cut Challenger in Boston, in your city, because Luca shot in Boston and the tennis court was in Boston too. So I moved to Boston for those 2 months. It was really helpful working on location because we watched dailies together, we watched footage together, so we started to put the scene together. It was really helpful because, during the day Luca was on the set, but then in the evening he could watch the footage with me.
Was there anything unique about Challengers itself that made it so that he needed you there with him, or do you always work together on location?
I work in location also on Bones and All. So it was a process already tested with him, and also in We Are.
You're cutting on location, but are you actually on set or are you just nearby?
I'm nearby, but sometimes if I have a chance, I can go to the set, visit what's happening there. But it's funny seeing the set. I mean, I prefer to work alone in a cutting room, in a dark cutting room, but it's okay.
So we've established that your cutting room is very dark. Other than the lighting, how do you like to have it set up? What are the things that you need with you there to be a productive editor?
My cutting room in Boston was really simple. I mean, 2 desktop monitor, television for the director. But when I'm in Milan, I like to work with the Cintiq, the Wacom. It's really nice. And, working with the hands, it's like a drawing. I like this kind of idea that you're drawing the movie.
That's another answer I haven't heard before. And again, being Italian, you like to use your hands, so I get it.
Yeah, it's really hard, talk without using the hands.
This is a movie that very effectively moves back and forth through time to tell the story. The very first thing you show the audience, before even the opening credits, is the 3 lead characters from a scene at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. That was actually in the script. And I think this is a really good idea of Justin Kuritsis, the screenwriter, because, the opening of the movie, it's foreshadowing for the final scene. And when I watch the footage of the opening scene of Challenger, it reminds me the opening of Bones and All. Because Bones and All opens with drawings, with paintings, and you look at these fantastic paintings of places, of location, or landscape that you'll see through the movie. And then you can hear music coming from Maren, because Maren is playing the piano, and the camera follows the music. And Challenge open with 3 shots of the actors. You will follow through the movie for the next 2 hours. Then you can hear the music, but then you can hear also the voice of the umpire, and the camera follows the voice of the umpire, and the voice brings you to the court, to the tennis court. So when I watched the opening, or the footage of the opening, I said, oh wow, this is like Bones and All.
As I said, the movie jumps back and forth between what is the climactic tennis match and the backstory that explains how the 3 characters are connected. It seems like there would be a lot of opportunity to shift things around because of that, but was there much change from the script to the final cut of the film?
No, because the script was really well written. There was no need to change a scene because the structure was really good. And it was a back and forth the entire movie as a structure of a tennis match, So actually we remove maybe just 1 scene, but nothing else.
With the script that tight, was your assembly, your first cut, pretty close to the final cut in terms of time?
Yeah, for sure, because the first cut was 2 hours and 20. And then we remove in a couple of minutes, like 10 minutes, and then we got a picture log because it was 2 hours, and now the cut is 2 hours and 10, something like that, yeah.
We've definitely established the movie is more about people and a love triangle than it actually is about tennis, but you still want to keep the tennis sequences authentic and accurate. Was your experience playing tennis enough to help you with that during editing, or did you and Luca get any outside help or consulting with that?
We had a tennis consultant. It was Brad Gilbert, the former coach of Andre Agassi. It was really helpful. I know something about tennis, so I edited the sequence, and then we sent to him to get some feedback from an expert like him, And also he was the coach who trained the actors before the shooting.
Obviously, with a film like this, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to the editing of the tennis sequences, which are really incredible. But even in the dramatic dialogue-driven sequences, there's a sense of rhythm as to how you cut between these 3 characters. It almost feels like there's a verbal tennis match going on between them.
Yeah.
How did you approach editing those scenes?
There was a lot of footage for the dialogue scene. Luca shot many different setups. When he gave me the building as a reference, the super modernistic building, I approach the editing of the dialogue scene like a tennis match, of course. So it's like a match, and especially scene 69, when Art is saying to Tashi, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna retire, you know. This is one of my favorite scenes, and there are a lot of setups in the scene, but it's like we are seeing a tennis match. And so there is this back and forth, so many point of views, you know. Also, the editing of Challengers reminds me of a dance, because the actors, the players on the tennis course are dancing, because they're moving their body in this court, and the net, for me, it was like a mirror. And it was like a mirror because we edited the scene like in a symmetry way. So if you look at the tennis sequence, you can see that sometimes one actor finishes the movement of the other one. There is a symmetry between them. And we played a lot with the shapes, because there is the shapes of the triangle, you know, there is a shape of the rectangle.
It sounds like there's a lot of geometry to how you cut.
Yeah, there is a lot of geometry inside, because also it's a dance because of the music, you know. I remember when we had the first call with Trent and Atticus, and Luca said, guys, I want to do a rave party. This music has to be a rave party.
He said to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I want my score to be a rave.
Yeah, that's be a rave party, and I want the people dance on your music. The people has to dance in the theater, because this is a movie where the dance is one of the main things in the movie.
That score is so powerful and so present throughout the film. Did you have that score to work with from the beginning, or did you temp with something else first?
We don't like to use temp music, because we think the temp music are toxic, you know, because you get used to listen to this temp music, and then when you receive the final score, you don't like it, because, but I prefer the previous one, you know.
That temp love.
Yeah, so actually we edited everything without music. You know, but the scenes are so rhythmic. There is a rhythm in the scene of the dialogue, but also in the tennis sequence. So we decided to work without the temp music, and then we sent the movie to Trent and Atticus. We put some cards on the frame, on the scene, that it was a good point for the music. So they receive an entire movie with some reference cards. We put the name TNA, and then I found out that in America it means tits and ass, because Atticus told me on the but you know what it means, TNA? No, what it means? Oh, okay.
I'm surprised those guys don't just use that anyway. So you don't have like a normal spotting session. You just give them the movie with your reference card saying, put the score here. That's even more interesting, because you already said Luca wanted a rave party. A high energy score like that is usually behind action. Like you can see it perfectly fitting in the tennis sequences because it's a lot of energy, but you use it even during dialogue scenes, and not like quietly, like it's present. And that feels like a very bold choice that paid off very well. What made you want to use the score in that way?
Because Luca was really, really clear. The music in this movie has to be a character. So we have to feel the presence of the music in every moment. And it was silly using this kind of music in just a background, you know, in a conventional way. So let's try, let's push it, you know. And I think it's perfect, because it's something you can see really often, you know.
So as powerful as that bit of score is, there are at least two other pieces that you use as well. One is a piano piece with arpeggios that comes in at poignant moments. There's also one with a choir that is prominent when Tashi, Zendaya's character, finally comes to terms with the fact that her promising tennis career is over. So since I asked you about the TNA score, we'll call it from now on, I should ask you to tell me about these other ones as well.
Yeah, actually, we have 3 cue music of Benjamin Britten, because there is the opening, and then when Tashi is sitting under the tree, and then when she comes back to the hotel after the night spent with Patrick. So these 3 songs of Benjamin Britten, Luca had in mind before shooting. I remember because he gave me these 3 tracks, and he told me, okay, we're gonna use it 3 tracks, and the opening, in the middle, and the end. So it was already in his mind, and it was perfect because he told me he reminds me like they are kids, because there is a choir of young kids singing, and he told me our characters are like kids, the innocent.
I asked you about the dialogue scenes and the rhythm behind how you cut those. And then you talked about the symmetry in some of the tennis stuff, with the net being like a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any rules you used in how you cut the tennis match between Art and Patrick?
No rules, because we wanted to be free. We didn't want to feel any rules, just gut feeling. Sometimes you don't have to explain some editing choice, but you choose to cut on the shot because you like it, and because you feel that it's something that could create significance, emotions. And when I edited this sequence on the tennis court, the only thing that I had to pay attention, of course, is the accuracy of the tennis, but also the doubles, how the actors are playing tennis, if they are playing in a good way or not. And it was funny because they shot the tennis sequence sometimes with the tennis balls and sometimes without the tennis balls. And also sometimes without the rackets, because they were dangerous for the camera, because sometimes they were very close to the camera. So the camera could limit their movement. So it was funny because sometimes I watched the footage, okay, there is no balls, no racket, what am I watching now?
There is one type of shot in the movie that I can't quite figure out how you did. It looks like a VFX shot, but it looks so real that it almost can't be. And this is the shot. It seems to happen from beneath the court, looking up at Art and Patrick. How did you make that happen?
Yeah, Luca is a genius. I think really Luca is a genius, because when I received the footage of the last scene, he told me, remember that there will be a new shot. What? Yeah, we're gonna shoot another shot, another setup in a week. And then please keep in mind that we'll have this fantastic shot from below. What does it mean from below? They build a glass tennis court to recreate that moment. And it's funny because when I received the footage, Luca told me, let's try to use it in a specific way, because it has to be surprising and something that you don't expect. It's a miracle, And if you keep this shot really long, you're gonna lose this effect, this emotion. So it has to be really, really quick and surprising when I see these 3 or 4 shots from below.
Well, Luca is a genius, because I never would have imagined somebody would have built an actual plexiglass tennis court to pull off that shot practically, but I guess geniuses do.
Yeah.
A lot of the tennis action in the movie is in super slow motion. I know that's something you can do in the Avid, but this is also something that just looks so good that it feels like a decision Luca had to commit to in camera during production. So what did he shoot with, and was all that slow motion in camera, or did you play with that in the Avid at all?
Yeah, all the slow motion challengers are in camera. They shot with a really particular camera because, Challenger is shot on film, not digital. Luca wanted to shoot some specific scene, for example, the 4 shot of the opening, and also when Patrick smashed the racket, Luca wants to shoot with a super slow-mo camera, but it's really tricky to shoot with an analogic camera because you have to find a really specific camera. And Luca found this camera that shoots 1000 per second, something like that. It's really wow. It's really something impressive. And you can find just 2 types of this camera in the world, and one of these is in Italy. So Luca found this camera and asked to the production to bring the camera in Boston, and it was really a huge machine because we had to record 1000 per second. I never seen something like that before.
You see pieces of the final match throughout the film, but at the end of the movie, when it's time to show the climax of the tennis match, you introduce some new visual tricks that you didn't show before. As you said, the low-angle plexiglass court shot. Luca says, use that sparingly and use that at the right time for maximum impact. Something else you do at the end is you have shots from the point of view from the tennis ball. How did you do that? And why did you decide to hold that type of shot until the end of the film? Was it the same reason, like, let's save that fun for the end?
My concern when I read the script was about the tennis scene, because sometimes tennis can be boring. I'm a tennis player, I'm a tennis fan, but I have to say sometimes tennis can be boring. But Luca found a way to shoot in a really entertaining way and sophisticated way. Luca had in mind to use this kind of shot for the finale, because Luca said, I remember that he told me the final sequence has to be a great symphony between editing, score, and sound design. Something really, really impressive. And he shot the entire sequence in slow-mo, because now we are in the ending, so let's take time. We don't have to rush. And yes, he decided to use the POV because, they are playing their best tennis in their entire career, and let's play with the cinema. The camera has to be the ball. So Luca shot in this fantastic way. I remember when I came to Boston, he showed me this fantastic preview made with a CGI, and I said, oh, Marco, this is for the final scene. Wow, my God, this is the movie you're gonna shoot? Wow. I remember also in the sound mix, he asked to push high, more volume for the racket sound, for the ball sounds, has to be really loud, like the score, like the crowd. So the final sequence, like I told you, it's a dance. I recently watched a movie, it was Cabaret, and I think that Luca had in mind Cabaret when he shot Challengers, because the dance sequence of Cabaret, they really edited like Challengers, because sometimes in Cabaret you can see fantastic, really beautiful shots, setups, and just for a few seconds and no more, like in Challengers.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about one more shot that I would have thought to be digital, but it might be in camera. And it's also in the final match. You have a shot from behind Tashi's head with Patrick to her left and Art to her right. So you have all three of them in frame and in focus. Was that some sort of split diopter, or was that digital? How did you do that?
We did it on digital, but the reference was like the optical lenses that Brian De Palma used in his movie, but also Luca in Suspiria used this lens in a shot with Dakota and Tilda.
Well, as you know, you have fans all over the world now. I have a fan question for you.
Oh, good.
This is from Mike from Dublin. He says, there was a moment in Challengers after the two guys invite Tashi to the beach, and she responds, sure, but her response is actually in the next shot, and the music from the previous trails over the cut. And he goes on to say, it was a really simple thing, but fireworks went off in my brain when it happened.
I thought really that no one could notice. I mean, because it was really something subtle. It was really something quick. But because we decided to cut on the word, because there is a one syllable on Tashi and the other one on the light of the moon reflecting on the water, because we wanted to give the idea that Tashi is like a mermaid. Also, the way Luca shot Tashi in the beach scene, she looks like a mermaid. She really looks like there is a really important monument in Copenhagen, in Denmark. And if you look at the picture of this monument, the monument really reminds me the position of Tashi. And, you know, like in the Homeric tradition, the mermaids are dangerous. It's a nice cut. We really like it. And then the camera is bringing us away from Tashi and also the music that bring us to the next scene. I mean, it's really nice.
It's definitely amazing to see so much thought put into just a simple cut. You made fireworks go off in Mike's brain. So congratulations.
Thanks.
So obviously this is a big project in your career. Was there anything in particular that you learned from working on Challengers?
Actually, I really enjoyed the editing. It was like Bones and All for me because there was Luca, I worked with him, but it's my first studio movie. So it's a different workflow sometimes because you have to follow some process. It's just a step of my career.
It's a big step. You know, the story is told over many years, dating back to 2006, when Art and Patrick first meet Tashi. So the world changed a lot between 2006 and today. And I say that to ask, where did you find a working BlackBerry phone? I think that might be the most impressive bit of VFX in the film.
Oh, because Luca loved to work with these fantastic guys, the prop master, and they found an authentic BlackBerry.
The last one.
Yeah, probably.
I know you said you're no stranger to playing tennis, but I think you might be better than you're telling us. If you look closely at one tennis match in the movie, I think there's a little editing Easter egg. Am I right?
Oh, right, yeah. I think you're referring to the name of the opponent of Tashi, because if you can see the scoreboard, you can read M. Costa, because the opponent name is Maria Costa. It's let's say that it's an homage.